Greetings. For the past 30 years or so, I've singularly focused on the intersection of strategic planning and management theory and practice. In this presentation, I'd like to share some of what we've learned in a holistic and conceptually integrated fashion. In today's program, I'll segment my presentation into three parts: the rich history of our emerging profession, the scope and nature of strategic planning as a project, the essential requirements for an effective performance management process. Toward the end, we'll review by making the point that an effective strategic planning project plus an efficient performance management process equals a valuable strategic management system. Foundational to the emerging profession of strategic planning and management is a deep and rich repository of knowledge we as practitioners can build upon in our day-to-day work. Beginning 2,500 years ago with Sun Tzu in Eastern civilization, and similarly with the Greeks in Western civilization, the art and practice of strategic warfare was born, and has since evolved as we witness each day on the evening news. In the 1950s and 1960s, Peter Drucker and other management academics began adapting the principles of effective warfare to real-world business situations. These classical notions continue to evolve today. Examples of conceptual models and modern tools strategy professionals can employ include the hedgehog concept by Jim Collins, the 9-box matrix by McKinsey, Michael Porter's 3 choices, the Boston Consulting Group experience curve, the 7S model, the balanced scorecard, Blue Ocean strategy, the Boston Consulting Group's growth matrix, Michael Porter's 5 forces. Importantly, to derive tangible benefit from adopting such practices, it's essential to use the right tool in the right situation. When strategy professionals employ a singular approach in their work, they risk facing a dilemma. That is, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Returning to classical theory, there are 3 primary phases a leadership team goes through during any strategy management process: strategy development, operational execution, evaluation and control. All of this supported by an effective information system. Phase 1 is a strategic planning project. That is, actually developing the organization's strategic plan and operating plan. Phases 2 and 3 constitutes a performance management process. That is, including all organizational activities aimed at achieving the objectives stated in the plan. Conceptually, such a system appears to be quite rational and understandable. However, strategic management does not exist without considerable randomness of trial and error and interrupted activity that may bear no relation to an orderly process. Part 2, Strategic Planning, a project. Today, most practitioners generally agree strategy management can better be described as having 5 basic phases: assess and organize, environmental assessment, both external and internal, strategy formulation, strategic planning, implementation, evaluation, and control. Clearly, the strategy professional is the person responsible for seeing that this system of processes are understood and followed in a practical and an effective manner. On the other hand, we have not reached consensus as to the nature and sequence of the steps or activities of each phase or in how to best define strategy management terms. In fact, there are many ways to effectively employ the power of strategy management. There's no one way. There's no one set of definitions. Over the years, we've taken a generic approach, enabling us to employ various conceptual models and tools as the situation dictates. We call this approach Management Through Applied Planning Process, or MAP. Connecting our own conceptual approach to the Association for Strategic Planning Certification Body of Knowledge Guide, these 5 phases can be categorized as lead, think, plan, and act. In phase 1, there are a number of important considerations any strategy professional must consider at the outset of any strategic planning and management engagement. Is the current strategy working? What is the performance and perceived potential of each offering? What are the strategic management capabilities of the team that we're working with? What's the scope of the effort? What is the plan of work? Who will be on the team that's doing the planning? Is there commitment from the top? Very importantly, is there a preliminary change management plan in place? Is there a strong management champion? Most importantly here is whether a qualified strategy development champion exists inside the organization to manage and lead the process. Very important. At the outset of phase 1, it's helpful to assess the full range of strategy management system components in terms of what has already been developed, what components need work, or what components do not exist and therefore must be created. This exercise helps everyone clearly define the scope of the strategy management program to be undertaken. In organizations with a formal board governance structure, the board and staff leaders must embrace their respective roles and responsibilities in the process. Early on, it's largely the board's responsibility to launch the effort, understand their environment, and determine the longer-term direction of the organization. Staff's role is to support the board and provide thoughtful input into and oversight of the strategic planning project. In fact, early on, the board's responsibility is probably closer to this level of influence. Over time, the leadership role shifts to the staff when it comes to building an operating plan and in executing the operating plan. Finally, a shared responsibility emerges when it comes time to evaluate the plan's actual performance. In phase 2, it's all about reading the tea leaves. By this I mean gaining a shared understanding of the trends impacting an industry and organization now and or in the future. More specifically, it's all about understanding the world around us, and most importantly, listening to the needs, wants, and expectations of our customers and key stakeholders. Eventually, the analysis portion of the assessment phase ends, and the team is challenged to evaluate what has been learned about the primary opportunities for growth and the threats impeding current and or future growth. A proven and widely used tool to make this evaluation is SWOT analysis, or as we prefer to call it, an OTSWE evaluation. We make this distinction to emphasize the point that prioritization should begin by focusing on the most important market-based opportunities. For the purposes of this presentation, we make the assumption that all of you are familiar with this highly effective evaluation tool. Prior to making fundamental decisions about which market-based opportunities to pursue, any leadership team is well served to consider each of the relevant market opportunities in terms of the degree to which a particular opportunity aligns with the core competency or competencies of the organization. First developed by Gary Hamel and C.K. Prahalad, core competency is any factor or consideration perceived by the customer that differentiates the organization and provides for a competitive edge over its rivals. The core competency of the organization becomes the focus around which relevant opportunities are chosen and strategic direction is defined. Here we see the strategic planning and thinking process in motion. First, the external environment is analyzed. Then, specific opportunities and threats are identified. Then, the internal environment is analyzed. Specific strengths and weaknesses are therefore identified. Finally, relevant market-based opportunities are evaluated in terms of their fit with the organization's core competency. Core competency is essentially a filter, helping a leadership team to decide where to focus. During phase 3, defined as strategy formulation, A particular leadership team reflects upon what was learned during the environmental assessment phase as they decide upon their future direction and how, as an organization, they best move forward. Janine Lamarche, a valued colleague, defines the gap between the current state and the desired future state as the delta. The delta is neither the old way of things or the new way of things. Life teaches us all there are many ways to move forward through the emotionally charged delta. It's the primary role and responsibility of the organization's board, supported by its executive management team, to work together to define the organization's strategic direction and the best pathway forward. From our perspective, the concept of strategic direction includes 5 distinct statements. Mission, what is our purpose? Vision, what is our destination? Core values, what beliefs will guide our decision making? Goals, what is or are the primary themes to the plan? And then lastly, policies, what rules will we follow? In phase 4, with the longer-term direction in place, responsibility quickly shifts from where are we going to how do we get there. Stated differently, what is our strategy? To answer this question, we recommend the team first ask themselves a more basic question. Where do we need strategy? Having a clear understanding of the current state, derived from the environmental assessment phase, and now the desired future state, specified in the several strategic direction statements, the team should be able to reach consensus and specify 6 to 8 key drivers of success. We refer to these drivers of success as key result areas, areas internal to the organization or external where positive results must be generated for the organization to achieve its primary goal or goals and ultimately long-term vision. With the key drivers of success agreed upon, the leadership team can now identify a reasonable size set or repository of feasible strategies and high-level tactics for each of the drivers. In virtually every organization, resources are limited and strategic choices must be made as to which of the feasible strategies to actually select for inclusion in the organization's strategic plan. Our 30 years of experience has taught LBL that organizations of all types are best served when they select strategies which are consistent with the perceptions of the leadership team in terms of value and feasibility, are likely to result in goal attainment, and very importantly, are strategies that lead to cross-functional alignment at the operational level. With the high-level strategy statement selected for inclusion in the organization's longer-term strategy plan, the question now becomes, what framework do we employ to effectively and efficiently communicate the information to key stakeholders? The purpose of a comprehensive planning framework is to provide leadership, in this case a food service association, with a single graphic of the key drivers of success and associated strategies. The framework should include provision for both past, current, and future planning periods. In the end, this one-page document answers the question, what is our strategic plan of action to achieve our goal? While formulating the overall direction of the organization, it's timely to sharpen the organization's customer value proposition. An effective approach to this important consideration is for the leadership team to ask the following 6 questions. 1. What needs does the target market have? 2. What products or services are available to the targeted customers? 3. What's the most important benefit the customer can expect to receive? 4. How is the product or service priced in the market? 5. What makes the products or service uniquely different from other options? And 6. How can we prove our overt benefit and our points of differentiation? The importance of giving customers real reason to believe that your organization can do what you say you can do cannot be overemphasized. The high-level strategic direction and strategic plan must be translated into a practical operating plan for real value to be realized. Why is this the case? Oftentimes, a gap develops between the intended strategic direction as it comes down from the top of the organization and the level of employee understanding of how their daily activities contribute to achieving the vision. The gap appears almost by necessity because the strategic plan is, by its nature, a series of longer-term goals and strategies, while most managers are trained to gauge their progress by assessing achievement in meeting operations level, here and now demands and deliverables. Translating the big picture to everyday operational activities has been the desired end result of strategic planning from its earliest manifestations on the American corporate scene. To frontline workers, the corporate strategy can seem highly irrelevant to their daily existence. Their sense of disconnection and powerlessness to affect the outcome can be overwhelming. They can often feel, why should this matter to me? Success at the top never reaches down here. To avoid this problem, careful attention must be placed on development of a practical strategic operating plan. The strategic operating plan is the physical manifestation of strategy formulation converging with implementation. It's a set of marching orders detailing exactly what will be done to transform selected and approved strategies into operating activity with measurable results during the annual budgeting and operating calendar. The first theorists to effectively bridge this gap were Robert Kaplan and David Norton from Harvard in their pioneering work on the balanced scorecard. Their model recognizes 4 strategic perspectives integral to executing strategy, and as important, linking these perspectives in a synergistic and cause and effect relationship. These perspectives enable a leadership team to translate and embed their high-level strategies into the functions of the organization. Each unit can then be clear and aligned behind a reasonable set of strategic objectives, metrics, targets, and projects. Here we have a basic balanced scorecard example for a hospital, including a strategy map. Note the logic. If we learn and build capacity in the right areas, we now have the ability to do something which creates tangible value for the customer. If we in fact do execute correctly, we can achieve results, whether they be customer-oriented results or financial results, which in turn leads to achieving the overall goal statement. To help demonstrate this thought process, let's take a look at a real-life example of a consulting organization in the agriculture industry. The Illinois Farm Business Farm Management Association is a cooperative educational service program designed to assist farmers with management decision-making. The organization utilizes farm analysis specialists to provide ag-focused professional accounting services for business and family records, business analysis reports, and business operations counseling. FBFM cooperates with the University of Illinois. As an output of their organization's strategic planning project, 8 key result areas, or key drivers of success, were identified. For each driver, a small set of feasible strategies were identified for each key result area. The question now becomes, how do we translate these high-level strategies into something that can be effectively and efficiently executed over the next 2 or 3 years? To do this, we use what we refer to as a translation table. A translation table sorts the various high-level strategies into the 4 perspectives of the balanced scorecard, while maintaining the linkage to the appropriate driver of success. With the strategies organized by perspective and key result area, the strategy team can now derive the intended outcomes or objectives for each perspective. With a balanced set of objectives identified, They can now be linked in a cause and effect set of relationships and efficiently communicated to stakeholders. Actual implementation of a strategic operating plan works most effectively when all levels of the leadership team work together to further translate overall goal statements by defining key performance indicators for each strategic objective included in the strategy deployment map. Workers in any organization must be able to translate the high-sounding phrases of the strategic plan into everyday talk, real people talk. Once the broader team can relate goals, strategies, and objectives to key performance indicators, a consensus starts to build. A real shared understanding of the challenges ahead begins to form. This consensus is further enhanced once specific targets are set for each indicator. Collecting and using key performance indicators to evaluate the soundness of the strategic direction is a necessity for well-run organizations in today's tumultuous global economy. Below is a practical and effective exercise a planning team, in this case a manufacturer, completed to help them identify key performance indicators. Step 1, brainstorm a targeted set of potential indicators for each objective included in the operating plan. Step 2, rank each indicator from 1 to 5 across the factors listed A to F. Step 3, select those vital indicators that best fit the situation. Keep in mind, 5 is good, 1 is bad. When KPIs are in place, a leadership team will move on to identifying where specifically to invest resources to achieve a particular objective. A 2x2 matrix is an effective tool to facilitate this process. Part 3, performance management, a process. Ultimately, the tangible value of strategy management is derived from successfully achieving a particular organization's vision and goals, as set forth in the strategic plan of the organization. The process of achieving these desired organizational outcomes is called performance management. It includes all organizational activities aimed at ensuring the organization's strategic goals and objectives are met in an effective and efficient manner. And it begins by cascading the enterprise level or Tier 1 strategy map down into the operating units of the organization, or Tier 2, and eventually to the individual level, or Tier 3. It's important to note that not every objective on the Tier 1 map is cascaded down to every Tier 2 unit. Some objectives align with a particular unit or department, and others do not. In the end, strategy practitioners must play an influential role in working with their team to maintain line-of-sight linkages to the strategic objectives that make up strategy at all levels of the organization. Graphically, this notion of strategic alignment is better visualized as follows. The absolute key to effectively cascading a Tier 1 strategy map is to understand that strategy execution is all about people and the changes they must make in order for any strategy to be implemented correctly. John Cotter and others have done pioneering work in this area. His template can guide any change management process, and if implemented correctly, can go a very long way to ensuring positive performance is achieved. Culture change is complex and can be difficult to accomplish. Many factors must come into alignment for culture change to occur. In this slide, we present 6 different scenarios and 5 factors that must be in place for positive change to occur. Failure to execute on any one of these factors can lead to dysfunctional results. Culture change is never easy, often occurring at what seems a glacial pace. Besides cascading, alignment, and culture change, there is another element to consider in building an effective performance management process. that is, the levels of performance management. Let's look at a second agriculture example now. Each year, the Illinois Soybean Association takes a careful look at progress being made toward their primary strategic goal. This is Level 1 performance management. This occurs by examining factual information, KPI performance level, as well as subjective information available to the board and senior management team for each of the objectives on their association strategy map. Level 2 is also strategic and covers the specified objectives, KPIs, and a desired target level of performance for each indicator associated with a particular objective. Level 3 is operational and covers initiatives, programs, and projects and their associated outputs and outcomes of performance. Level 4 is essential to performance management too. It's the ongoing improvement of operational processes that support execution of the strategy. For example, accounting, HR, and IT. In summary, a properly executed strategic and operational planning project which carefully integrates information flows into an ongoing performance management process are key to building an effective strategic management system. As strategy professionals, it's our responsibility to facilitate and continuously improve this most important organizational asset. Like so many things in life, such a system requires structure, responsibility, and time frames. A high-level strategic management calendar has proven to be the glue which holds all the pieces of the system together, which in the end enables an organization to remain strategically focused.